Hi everyone, here we are, part 2 of the HVAC unit rebuild. As you can see, I have replaced all the foam on the damper doors. I've cleaned them up first, obviously. All the foam has been replaced. The housings have been cleaned up. As you can see, this housing here, the other half of the housing has been cleaned up. The foam has all been cleaned, deodorized, ready to go. All right, you have the 3 main damper doors in here, which I have coated the ends with a little grease. We're going to start with them going into the section of the housing that holds the motors. And as you can see, some of these have a little notch on the end of the shaft. That's where the gear is going to snap on for the drive linkages. This particular door, which is your front vent, the upper vent door, does not have that. It just has the spline shafts. It really doesn't matter which way it goes in, but it does, because you have to make sure the foam is facing the right direction. This one has the little indents on it to lock the gear in place. All right, so got them situated. Now comes a little bit of a tricky part. You have to line up all these damper shafts so they go into the holes. Oh, I did forget one thing I want to mention here. These little flanges, all right, they slide right back in here. You took them out before when you were cleaning. They got to go right back in. All right, there's going to be an upper and lower one. Put the one in the other half now. So I find it. There it is. You can only go in one direction. All right, it should stay in there while I'm putting these halves together. All right, now I'm going to put the halves together. One more item. Little pins here. All right. Earlier I told you about these pins. They're used for locating this piece, which is the section that holds the shaft, the drive shaft in on the damper door, the mixed doors. All right, you don't want to break those pins off. If they break off, you're going to have nothing to hold that mixed door in place. So be very careful when you're cleaning these things. You don't drop this, you don't step on it, because they'll snap right off, and if they do, you'll have to replace it with a little metal rod in there. So I'm going to put these 2 halves together. Stick your hand in wherever you can to get the shafts to line up. All right, after a lot of wiggling around, I've got the shafts to line up. As you can see, the ends of all the damper doors. I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to install this part right now. So we're going to install holes up. I'm going to have to separate this a little bit. Get it past the pins. one of my damper doors is misaligned, so get that back in, push it back together, and now you can see the plate, the little plate is held in by those two pins. Okay, so I have all my dampers in here installed correctly. Now I can just start screwing the whole case back together, all these screws here. Alright, most of the screws are in place. What you don't want to forget is the screw that goes down into this hole. Alright, most of the screws are back in place now. Got a few left to do. Alright, last screw you do not want to forget, and that's the one that drops down into that hole in there. Helps if you have a magnetic tip screwdriver. And last item holds the case together is this clip. Just snap it on. Alright, the cases are together. Next step is to start installing the gearing. What I would suggest though before you do with the gearing is that you foam the flanges here for the upper and lower side outlets. It's much easier to do prior to putting on the gearing. Otherwise you're trying to shove the foam in between the gears and the linkages, and it's a bit of a challenge. So I'm going to stop right here. I'll pause this. I'm going to get this foamed, and then we'll put the gears on. Alright, I'm going to put some of this foam on. I just want to show you a little trick of putting the foam on, especially if you're doing it with the linkages on. Just start putting foam on. Don't pull the paper out all the way yet. Just work it around. If you get in a tight spot like here, pull the paper out as you're going around. Got this. Nice if I had sharp scissors out here, but I don't. That's it. Pulling the paper out like that prevents this from sticking prematurely and then having to rip it back off and probably waste the foam. Here's another tight spot here. The piece is probably not going to be long enough, but let me check. Nope, get another piece. Sometimes this paper can be a pain in the neck to get off. There we go. Sometimes you'll have to use a needle, sewing needle, pin to get it off. So what I'll do, I'll start around here. Pull the paper up so I can access the paper. The foam in place, then I'll just start pulling the paper out. Bring it around, I'll measure. Most of the foam kits will come with the large roll of the foam ribbon, so you'll have to cut it. recommend cutting it after you put it on like this. That's it. Alright, getting ready to install the mix. Sorry, let me start over again. I'm getting ready to install the mode motor and the vent door motor. So first I'm going to do is get a little silicone grease on the cams, just a little bit. Put a little grease inside the grooves, camshaft slides, put grease on the gear. This gear in particular has a pin on it which rides under the cam on this piece. This has a habit of breaking, right? So be careful with it. If it breaks, you can't replace it. You have to find a whole unit or a spare part somewhere, but you're not going to get one because they don't sell any of these parts individually for these units. Grease on. You don't want to over tighten these, you'll strip the holes, plus you're buying the gear. And so this gear and this gear here has two little nubs on them. So when you're installing this, you want to make sure they're going to line up. You can see how they're lined up right here. Hopefully the camera's focused. Push this down until it snaps into place. A little grease. Leave this one loose because we have to get the gear under it. Should say the cam. Snap that into place. Now this is two different slots. One is for this lever and the other one is for this gear. Just move this around till they line up. Go. Oh, I forgot. Lever fell out on me while I was trying to force it into place. Pull that back off. Get that back in place. I forgot to put the plate on. The screw. You wouldn't think I haven't done this a million times. Put that in place. Alright, if you rotated this shaft here at all and that lever around on there, spun it around, you don't remember where it is, in the service manual is instructions on how to sync the linkages correctly. Alright. Put a little grease on this cam here. And it's going to go into that hole. Move it around so it lines up correctly. Well, it depends on where this was set when you took it apart. That in a minute. Same screws hold these in that hold the unit together. Now this has this cross spline shaft on the gear that fits into this. You notice there's only there's a narrow side on this, and there's going to be a narrow spline on the damper door. So you have to make sure it lines up correctly when you put it on. This is slightly has some slight adjustment on it, but basically you put it back together, you'll see the the marks from the screw heads on here. Let's put it back in the same position, took it out. You can see the close proximity of the foam. That's why you want to put the foam on before you put the motor on. Alright, that's it for these motors right now. The mixed door motor I will not put on till the very end. So next thing is going to be the evaporator is going to get installed. The mixed door mixed door dampers are going to be installed. So I'm going to pause for a second here. Alright, I'm now ready to put in the mixed doors. These are the doors that control the flow through the inner core of the HVAC unit, and they direct flow either through the heater core or bypass the heater core and only through the evaporator. When it's going through the heater core, it's going through both the heater core and the evaporator. Like I said before in the first part, one of the problems with the way the car is designed, the air intake is in the frunk, and it's very hot up there from the radiator. So it doesn't get, even when you have this just on fresh air mode, it's not going to get hot, cold air unless it's extremely cold outside. You're always going to get warm air coming through here, so you're almost forced to run the AC all the time, especially in warmer climates. So the damper door, the mixed doors right now have the ends greased up a bit. We're going to leave them just like this. This way they're easy to slide in. I'm going to make sure we have the splined end, little star on the end at the bottom. It's going to be at the top. And we're going to put this in just like this. All right. Then I've got stainless guide rods. Just drop in. Then I'm going to close the doors. This should be full closed. So there is no flow going through the heater core, all right? Which should be this direction. It's bypassing the heater core and going into the bottom here, which just goes from the evaporator right into the mixing chamber of the unit and out your vents. This opened up. Airflow now is directed through both the evaporator and right through your heater core. So we're going to close this so we'll keep them in place. And this is where this unit was set to full cold when it was taken apart. And the way to determine that is on the mix motor. You'll know if it's on full cold if the little pointer on the cam is aligned with the pointer on the plate. That's full cold. And again, as you can see, we have the star pattern here, or cross pattern with the little slot on top and the larger slots in the bottom, so that cannot be misaligned when you're installing the motor back on the housing. Alright, don't forget to replace your flange. It's the bottom half, or this half. Then all we're going to do is slide this in. I've already installed the closed cell foam around this. It's going to drop in like this. Just slides right in. Nice tight fit. Alright, I'm going to get a block of wood to block this up. Alright, so I'm going to block unit up so it's sitting level, much easier to work on here. So just get a 2x4, stick it under there. Oops. Alright, I have the bottom housing. The housing, I don't have them on here, but I did mention in part 1, there are heavy rubber gaskets that go on here. This doesn't have them. I'll put them back on before I send this unit out. But make sure when you take the unit out of the car, this is the portion to be mounted up against the firewall. Those gaskets sometimes can stay on the car, and if you drop them, lose them, you're not going to be able to replace them. You'll have to make something up. So we're going to put this on. As you can see, the holes here, these guides to get the shafts in place. It's pretty easy, provided you got this thing sitting nice and horizontal like it is. You're just going to put this on. And I did almost forget the other half of the... You can put this on here. Or you can do this. It's probably the preferred method. Put this on first. There will be 2 screws that go in here. Put that together. And we're going to drop this down. If that came out, make sure you put it back in. That sometimes can pull out. This little other plate, this is for right-hand drive cars. All right, we're just going to spot the gear, the shaft on the mixed door damper. Make sure you're lined up on the groove on the flange. Again, you're trying to align a couple things at once here, get a little tricky. A little assistance from a screwdriver, there we go, just to line that up. Alright, that's in place. As you can see, the little, oops, the shaft is coming out of the top. Just have to push that back down. Make sure everything's lined up correctly. Alright, the only thing left is to secure it. Turn it over. Got a couple of screws going on the other side. There'll be a open cell foam that will go around this. This will mate to the firewall. The unit has a combination of open cell, closed cell foam, different thicknesses. Neoprene seals. The neoprene is for the flanges that mate to the car. Alright, that's pretty much it for this unit. I will put the mixed door motor back on. So what I do with this, I make sure it's full close first. Turning it clockwise. Now you don't want to force it past that point. There's no need to do that. So you can back it off a bit. You can get an idea of where it needs to be based upon your the cross on the motor. And my direction, I'm always, all right, let's see here now. If you feel you're forcing it by turning it clockwise, back it off one rotation. Go. It's on. Alright, set. Be careful of this clip here. If you happen to loosen it up and see how easy that just came off, and you put that back together with it loose, it's not going to open and close the valve on the heater for the hot water supply to the heater core. So make sure it's tight. If it does pop off, you can get access to it from the passenger side, but you got to pull the carpet down and get your hand under there to get it back on. So that's pretty much it, other than foaming, doing the rest of the foam on this. I'll test the motors. I have a rig where I just plug in the motors, and very easy to test. The manual has instructions on how to test the motors. Make sure you adjusted your linkages correctly. One last item, which this unit is not getting because the customer took it out just to save weight, is the heater core. Alright, the heater core with this slide in. As you can see, the heater core has all been refoamed with insulation. Alright, what I usually do is I spray the interior with silicone spray. Makes it much easier sliding this in because it is a pretty tight fit, and if you don't do that, you're going to possibly tear the foam on it. This is a 1/4 inch foam. The 1/8 inch foam is way too thin, and the heater core just slops around and doesn't provide the insulation that's required of it. So And actually the heater core goes in this side. So we just slide in, you would snap your thermocouple back on it, and the retaining clip here, and then your cover goes on over this. So that's it. All right. Foam kit comes with all the other bits and pieces you need to finish it out, and all the instructions. And of course, I'm always available if you got any questions. So I hope that helps everybody.